You think flame is your ally? You merely adopted the flame. I was born in it, molded by it.
Yo, what up? We're playing Into Evil again. So this time we're going to be showcasing off the Pyromancer. The Pyromancer, I think, is one of the better classes in this game, solely because he comes with so many tools to deal with most situations effectively. Other classes, like the Adventurer, for example, if the very first enemy you encountered is this Armored Knight, you're not going to be having a good time, right? Like, this could very easily be an ugly fight that either just kills you right at the start of the run, or it's going to take you down to like 1 HP or something. It can get pretty ugly if you're not super prepared for it. But in the Pyromancer's case, you just activate Ignition, hold it down, and just watch the guy kind of walk into your fire. So yeah, Ignition, obviously very decent spell, but it's super situational. It's only really good if you can constantly reapply it to enemies. Like, you can literally just stand there and blast them with it non-stop. It does push enemies back while you're blasting them, so that's kind of why you saw that Armored Knight. He just sort of stood there and took it because he literally couldn't get close to me, right? And his AI is not really designed to walk away from you when you're blasting him. But yeah, the Ignition spell, it doesn't deal damage on its own. All it does is apply the fire debuff. So when you tap the button, if you want to, like, just really quickly tap it, just to put fire on enemies, keep in mind they're not going to take an initial blast of damage. So that's why generally the Fire Bolt spell that he comes with, the other spell, is a lot better. It has the best range. It deals damage on impact because it has projectile damage attached to it, and then it also applies the fire debuff. So most of the time, if you have to default to a spell, default to Fire Bolt, and then save Fire Blast for any enemies that you're able to just stand there and hold the button down against them. Usually any enemies that are just going to walk mindlessly towards you to try to hit you, those are the ones that you want to Firebolt. If they're actually being blasted away by it, there are some enemies in this game that they'll just ignore the Fire Blast. But generally default to Firebolt. It's the best range. It's what you want to use in boss fights. It can deal with some enemies entirely by itself. Like, sometimes you don't even have to charge it. The uncharged projectile damage plus the damage over time on the status is oftentimes enough to deal with a lot of these weaker enemies. If you're getting swarmed, though, you can literally just hold down the Fire Blast button, and if you're against a wall or something and the enemies are clumped up, like, they're not approaching you from like directly left and directly right, they're kind of coming at you in the same direction, you can just hold it down and just watch them burn themselves to death. So that's pretty good. Other than that, he does come with a staff. The staff is not amazing. It has the bonfire spell. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's definitely not the best spell. The tracking on it sucks, so when enemies are already aggroed and moving towards you, you don't really want to drop it on them because they're just gonna walk past it, right? And if you're playing on controller, I don't know how it is for mouse and keyboard, but on a controller, you can't really like free aim it to put it in front of them. So that does hurt the viability of the spell a little bit. If it just came out like faster, like it was snappier, yeah, it'd be fucking amazing, because then you're at least guaranteed to get a tick of damage onto enemies. So maybe I'll talk to the why am I stuttering, man? I can't English. I'm sorry, I just woke up. But yeah, maybe I'll talk to the developer about that, see what he can do about maybe making the bonfire spell feel a little bit better. But where it really shines is when the enemies are not moving. So if they're on the other side of a gate, you can drop the bonfire spell on them. They usually don't path away from it. If you're fighting a stationary boss like Hellfire Priest, he doesn't really move around that much. When he does, it's because he's teleporting. But when he's not teleporting, he pretty much just stands completely still in place and just chucks fireballs at you. Good against that fight. If you're fighting Hellfire Demon, the timing is a bit scarier on that boss. But Hellfire Demon likes to do a really long range cone breath attack. And while he's doing that, he isn't moving. So you can drop bonfire right on the boss and just get massive damage, because while he's standing on it, he's just going to constantly get the fire debuff reapplied to him. And you see right there, that's what I'm talking about, like bonfire. It doesn't really feel great against basic enemies, because once it's down, they're gonna path around it, right? Like, enemies in this game they're not completely mindless. They do have a sense of self-preservation, but yeah, right here, rather than bonfire, it's just way better to just put myself against a wall and then just ignition blast them. Feels 10 times better. So, I mean, yeah, bonfire has its use cases, but otherwise, it's not amazing. Of all the spells that you're fine getting rid of, like, bonfire is definitely one of them, so don't feel too attached to your staff. But you do want to try to get creative with it. I will say, the staff secondary attack... Actually, no, I think it's the primary attack. I think the secondary attack is actually the spell, but the primary attack of the staff, it's just a bop. So you can bop enemies into the bonfire that you place down, and that does give it a little bit more viability against some of these more, you know, armored targets. So yeah, we're kind of just looting stage 1, you know, nothing too special. Not a lot that I want to switch my gear out for. I do take this just because I don't want to be just a pyromancer, you know, I kind of want to like play into being more of just a general mage. Even though I don't think lightning bolt is like a particularly good spell. You'll see why. It's definitely the coolest looking spell in the game, like by far. I mainly take it just because it looks so fucking cool, but its use cases are definitely like very limited. I'll kind of show you what I mean and what it's good for, but kind of treat it like a bonfire spell. It's only really good in certain situations, and it obviously has a very long cooldown time. So this is kind of one of those times where if you're still using your sacrificial dagger, you can kind of make it work with the lightning bolt a lot better. But the sacrificial dagger, it's not super useful on the pyromancer at the start, just because ignition and firebolt don't really have insanely long cooldowns, right? Like, they recharge relatively quickly. When one is on cooldown, you usually just use the other, and it's not that big of a deal. But something that he really does like is scrolls, and the reason why is because he has a really good starting stamina pool. So when you find scrolls, and usually, you know, they'll come with like an enchantment that you have to dedicate stamina towards, he's totally fine with it because he starts off with like 6 stamina, right? He's also fairly resistant to being set on fire himself, which is very necessary because he only has 3 starting HP, right? So if you were to be set on fire and you didn't have that innate fire resistance, it would pretty much just chew through your entire HP bar, and that would really suck. Anyway, we find an apprentice's orb of vigor. I don't care what it does. I think Blizzard is honestly worse than bonfire. I would say of all the area spells where you just drop like a status effect on the ground that just stays there, like thunderstorm, blizzard, and bonfire, I do think that bonfire is probably the best one, just because fire damage is the best status effect that the player can get access to. Oh, right, there's also toxic mist, but it's so, like, in my opinion, just completely fucking useless that I don't even ever remember that it exists. Fire is really good when it's reapplied constantly, because it doesn't last very long on the enemies, but while it's on the enemies, it does a lot of damage. So the more that you can constantly reapply it to them, the better it is. And then here, you gotta admit, it did absolutely fucking nothing to this militiaman, but it looked damn fucking cool. Like, you can't lie, that shit looked fucking awesome. But yeah, that's kind of what I mean, like, not the most useful spell. If you're weak to lightning, lightning bolt is really, really, really good, but if you're not weak to lightning, it kind of just doesn't do anything. And there are ways for enemies that are weak to lightning to still block it, so, you know, it's not amazing. I do wish lightning bolt went through shields, at least metal shields. There are some paladins, or armored knights, sorry. I don't want to call them paladins, because I'm sure there's actually going to be like a paladin enemy in the future that is like a big fuck off knight that heals himself. But yeah, the knights that run at you, even if they have a metal shield, they are able to block the lightning bolt spell. I don't think that's how that should work. I feel like if it's made of metal or just conductive material in general, it should still hit the armored knight. But, you know, I'll probably just leave that on like the closing thoughts or something. And yeah, developer, if you're watching this, you know, consider making that adjustment. Something that Into Evil likes to do is it really likes to play with logic and science. So very often, you know, you'll find, hey, this enemy is wearing armor, so he's weak to lightning. Hey, this enemy is completely covered in grease or pus, so when he gets set on fire, he can't put himself out, right? Stuff like that. But yeah, we're pretty much just looting. I don't really care what I find, honestly. I could literally find absolutely fucking nothing except a bow. Mind you, I still wouldn't play this class without looting whatsoever, so that's why I say, like, at least I want to find a bow. At least I want to find another range weapon to support his already range playstyle. So when I say this class doesn't need to loot, I just mean, like, he doesn't need to find super good items, right? Like, Adventurer is a very item dependent class. What you find determines how powerful you're going to be in your run. If you don't find good items and you just find a basic bow or a basic crossbow or hand crossbow, whatever, you know, the variant of range weapon it is that you're using, you're already sitting pretty with this class, right? But yeah, we found a triple crossbow. Honestly, I can't really be too disappointed with that. I did pick up this mace. I think this is a mace of quality, so the developer does insist that Sacrificial Dagger is really good if you can use it properly, but again, his starting spells that he comes with, their cooldown is really not so long that the Sacrificial Dagger feels mandatory. Where I do think that Sacrifice becomes better is in stage 2, where you need to have more consistent access to your more powerful spells, but just starting the run off, you're not really hurting for your cooldowns, right? And Firebolt, I mean, as good as it is, it's not like the most broken spell in existence, so resetting Firebolt, it's okay, you know? And then resetting Lightning Bolt, like, even if I reset it, it's still kind of hard to use. Again, you can tap it, but if you're holding it, sure, I'll reset it, but how many use cases do I have where I'm actually able to just stand there and hold down Lightning Bolt? Not very often. I think the viability of Lightning Bolt would be a little bit better if the channel time was reduced, so you could get to that big fuck off laser a little bit faster. But right now, like, it's so hard to use when enemies already spot you, because enemies in this game are fucking aggressive, man. Like, they just run the fuck at you. The best enemies that it's good against would be those armored knights, and they don't fuck around. They don't waste time. When they see you, they fucking gun it for you, you know? So oftentimes you just don't have the luxury of charging the spell up. You end up just tapping it, and I mean, tapping it is fine, but like nobody wants to tap Lightning Bolt, man. Like, I want to do the big fucking Kamehameha laser. That shit's awesome. So yeah, a Sacrificial Dagger, it's okay, not really necessary. Daggers in general don't really feel too good to use right now. I have talked to the developer, and he is considering making some adjustments to daggers as a whole, so hopefully in the future we can see the shitty little stab attack that they do that does triple damage. It's like, whoa, triple damage! But it feels really awful to use right now, so that's, you know, that's kind of why, like, oh wow, you know, triple damage, like, it sounds so good, but like, you're tripling 1, you know? If I just have like a shitty short sword, in the time that I used to do that shitty stab move that does triple damage, I could have done 2 short sword swings and ended up with more damage, right? With a generally better weapon, because it comes with like parry, it comes with slightly better range. I even kind of consider it to be more mobile in a lot of cases. It attacks about the same speed. Yeah, I would say short swords are honestly just better than daggers, but there is room for improvement with the daggers, so we'll just kind of wait and see where it goes. I don't want to get too hung up on daggers, you know, sucking. I don't think they, you know, that like they suck beyond usability. There's just no reason to use them right now over anything else. So yeah, developer, if you're watching this, please let's get some improvement on the daggers. I think daggers can be really cool, especially like dual wielded, like a rogue type of play style. You know, I don't actually mean like the rogue in this game. I just mean like rogues in general and like media. But yeah, we're just kind of going through the dungeon. When the game gives you a mace of quality, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. You pick that shit up and you make that shit work. This class does want to play mostly at range, but to be honest, I'm just so comfortable playing with melee in this game in general, since most of the classes in this game are melee focused, that even though this class doesn't really want you being melee, I just feel safe when I do it. Maces, because they have a knockback effect on the attack, it actually is probably the best thing that this class does want. Like, daggers aren't really a weapon that this guy wants, because daggers have a little bit too low range. So it's super easy to get like really up close to the enemies, and then they just kind of chain you because, well, you just got too close, right? In the case of maces, when you're attacking, you're also knocking the enemies away from you, so you can just sort of use it as a get off me button, which daggers don't have. So that's why I think that personally maces are a little better suited to the Pyromancer. So if you can find like a sacrificial mace, that is literally just a flat out fucking upgrade to the sacrificial dagger. But yeah, right now we are pretty low. Stage 1 can be a little scary on the pyro. Weirdly, I feel like I have a better time when I'm on stage 2, which I don't think any other class has. But I feel like in stage 1, I almost always find myself dropping to 1 HP. But to be honest, if I'm gonna have like a really ugly close encounter like that, I would rather it be as early as possible into the run and then never again, right? So yeah, we heal ourselves up, and then we decide, okay, you know, I'm healthy, I've got ammo for my bow, I've got my spells up, I'm feeling pretty good about this. It's Hellfire Priest, a boss that I never ever want to fight as a melee unit, but because I'm pyro, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Now, I dropped the blizzard on him. I forgot that you actually have to charge this for it to do anything. Right now it just chills him, and somehow I get chilled, even though I was like nowhere fucking near it. But this is the way that I like to play the fight. I like to do these little micro dodges in the center of the arena, and when he throws his fireballs at you, just kind of sidestep them. Pay attention to the little pillars that circle around, and this is why I like to stay in the center of the arena. That big flame that orbits the arena like that on the outer wall, that is fucking scary, and that can actually lead to you being ping-ponged around, and you basically just die from full HP, right? This boss is mostly going to try to stick to range. There are some cases where he teleports a little too close to you, and then he pokes you with his poker. But for the most part, he's going to stand back, and you're just going to play a little ranged fireball bow and arrow combat with him. But as soon as you dive in and you're a melee unit, I mean, ideally you have a shield, ideally you have a parry, because usually he's going to get the first hit on you. And if you make one mistake in that fight, that's all it takes for him to kill you. So that boss, not too hard if you're ranged, really fucking brutal if you're melee, and you have to have a lot of damage, you have to be really aggressive, and you have to play it pretty perfectly if you're melee. So yeah, I would say probably a better matchup for the Pyro than some of the other classes, because the Pyro, even if you don't find a ranged weapon like a bow or something, you don't care. You have the tools to make it happen. So I don't have any healing in my kit yet. I haven't found like a potion, although a potion isn't really what I want on him. What I want is like the heal spell, because I have a lot of stamina. So I know for a fact that when I do need to heal, it's always going to be a full heal, because it heals more based on how much stamina you have. Now, thankfully, I don't get bled here, because if I got bled here, it would have been a little bit uglier, but I still would have survived this, don't worry. Somehow, he actually loses vision of me, and I'm able to sneak around and get a crit on him from the back. And then I think he actually dies to the burn debuff. So, bit of a scary first encounter. If the very first enemy that you fight in a floor 2 dungeon is a priest, that's a little bit spooky, you know? So I'm like, all right, this is going to be a fucking mean floor 2. We're just going to have to get through it. But honestly, I feel like I get through it pretty unscathed. Skeletons, I believe they take more damage from blunt damage, so that's why you saw me one-shot that skeleton. If using a piercing weapon, they can take a while to kill, but it's nowhere near as bad as fighting like zombies, for example. Normally, in most videos, I say that slashing damage is preferred and almost mandatory, because zombies are such a fucking headache to fight in this game, because their health bars are so massively inflated, and a lot of status effects don't work on them. But thankfully for the Pyromancer, fire is one of the things that does work on them. So even though I don't have any slashing damage in my kit right now, I'm not too worried about zombies, because, mind you, it does still take a while if you have them die to burn, but you can just set them on fire, keep reapplying fire to them, and just watch them burn out. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using the Starlight spell from the Divination Orb to kind of scout out where enemies might be in the room. That way I don't basically face check them in the darkness, right? If I find them at range, I can blast them from range. Once it finds an enemy, it's going to circle and lock onto them like that, and that makes it a bit easier for you to, you know, throw your bullshit at them. And then yeah, this enemy can't really get to me, so we just stand in front of him and just ignition blast him in the mouth. Not much you can do. And you'll see me kind of like do these little stutter steps whenever I walk into a new room. That's just because my instinct when I'm playing this game is to approach it slowly. So, you know, sometimes I'll like kind of creep in and I'm like, is it, you know, is it safe in here? I recommend that if you're still learning the game, mind you, like, I could blitz through the dungeon, I don't find it enjoyable, and I feel like it's going to get me killed more. I have played with people that absolutely just fucking rip through floor 2, and I can promise you, they're the type of player that dies a lot. So my recommendation, especially if you're learning the game, take it slow, take your time. Yes, you can get very lost in these dungeons. Yes, you know, they're big, they're maze-like, there's not a lot of direction in this game, but just kind of take your time. You would rather play it slow and progress through the dungeon at a steady pace than just fucking blitz face first into a really ugly situation. Now that enemy, I don't actually know if he's weak to lightning. I don't know if he's like a big armored target. He doesn't seem to be armored. He looks like his flesh itself is on fire, but I could be wrong. He could be like an armored Hellfire Demon Guard, and that might be why he died so easily to that lightning bolt, because I feel like most enemies wouldn't die that easily unless they're actually weak to lightning. We deal with that Ice Elemental. Ice Elementals absolutely fucking suck, in my opinion, if you're not playing a ranged class, but thankfully we are, so I'm not too worried about it. You just wait for them to shoot their little ice dart at you, and then you help them with whatever ranged options you have. deal with them fairly quickly. If you're using a one-handed weapon, your attacks will actually bounce off of them as if you are attacking into armor. So that's one of those enemies where maybe having a two-handed weapon can be a little bit better, but keep in mind that with two-handed weapons, it's still kind of iffy because if they attack into you, they can cancel your attack. And then you're chilled, and then it's hard to get a second attack off when you're chilled with two-handed weapons because they're already very slow. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really using my crossbow that much. I'm not really using my mace that much either. I mean, I'm using my mace more than my crossbow at least, but I'm kind of just cycling through my spell rotation. Firebolt and that was unlucky. Firebolt and Ignition is really all you need to get through a floor 2 dungeon. These pus zombies, keep in mind when you set them on fire, you don't want to melee them because now they're more on fire than other enemies are for some reason. I hope there's like maybe an update in the future that makes this a little bit more visually clear. But when you set a pus zombie on fire, if you attack into them with a melee weapon, you will also be set on fire. So when they're on fire, keep in mind they can't put themselves out like other enemies. So just let it burn to death and just stay far the fuck away from it. You can pelt it with more range, but it's gonna die to your fire. So yeah. And you can see I play it slow. I enter the room. I use my little starlight orb to kind of scout out in front of me. And what's nice is you can see at range, once it finds an enemy, it's going to stay onto them like that. And because that draws the light source away from me and onto the enemy, I can actually now potentially sneak up on them. So that's one of the cases where maybe your sacrificial dagger does still have use if you do want to take it all the way to the floor 2. Is you can have your light source active and still sneak in a lot of cases just by putting your light source on the enemy. Then you know how it is. You just creep up behind them, do your stabby attack that comes out really slow but does double damage. And what is that, like 6 damage in total? It's crazy, right? Sorry, it's triple damage. Now, one thing I do wish is that I could cancel these area spells on the ground a little bit sooner, because while they're active, they do take up more of your stamina. Honestly, I don't even know why they take stamina while they're on the ground. I feel like that shouldn't be the case. But since there's no way to cancel them early, I'm probably going to talk to the dev and be like, hey man, I don't really like that I have to commit stamina to these when I can't get rid of them, right? Like in the case of enchantments that you put on yourself, the player, like an active buff, it makes sense that you're dedicating stamina in that case because, like you always have it active. But in the case of those area spells, you can drop it, walk away from it, and it'll just stay there for like 20 seconds doing absolutely fucking nothing but eating your stamina. So again, another reason I don't really like the bonfire spell. Again, it has its use cases. It's not a useless spell, but I do think I could see some improvements to feel a little bit better. So we can hear an enemy talking behind the gate, but we can already see his health bar because we have an enchantment that actually shows us enemy HP. So I'm just thinking about how I want to approach this. And I feel like because I have a mace, I can kind of just run him the fuck down. Then I decide to get fancy with it, which don't try to get fancy with it unless you're trying to die. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking lightning bolt this guy. So yeah, that's what happens. And then I realize I'm honestly just being stupid and I really should just rush him down with the mace. Again, lightning bolt, cool in concept, very, very like visually appealing, but not the most useful thing. We find literally the most useless item in the game in there, gold crusted collar. It's an item that does literally nothing. I don't know why it doesn't at least give some armor, but yeah, it does a whole bunch of jack shit. So This guy gets lost. I don't really know what went on there. I guess he just forgot about me. You know, must have been the wind type shit. And we find another stamina pip. So I'm sure a lot of players will get frustrated here because they're like, dude, I only have 3 health and like, you know, what do I do? Like, I'm gonna get one-shotted by anything. No, you're not. Play it safe, play it slow. Armor can still help you. The more armor that you have, the more chances for full damage reduction, or even partial damage reduction you'll get. So right now, yes, even me myself in this run, I'm like, okay, that's not ideal, right? Like, I already have a lot of stamina. I don't really need more at this point. I wish I could have gotten that heart, but I'm not stressed out about it at all. Like, I feel like the Pyromancer's loadout is good enough on its own. Just, again, just swapping between Ignition and Firebolt, that I'm really not that stressed out about it. So if you're the type of player where like you would get stressed out in this situation, just keep watching the video. You'll see the Pyromancer can get through it. It's not that big of a deal. And yeah, here I'm just kind of like looking at my loadout, trying to figure out like, do I take this? Do I not? I don't think it's worth holding 2 stacks of arrows ever, unless you're using a triple crossbow, because the triple crossbow uses 3 times the ammo. So you only really get like 6 or 7 shots with a triple crossbow, whereas with a normal crossbow you would be getting the full 20, right? So that's kind of why, like, you know, I sat there, I debated, like, is it better to have Blizzard? Is it better to just, you know, have 2 stacks of arrows? Triple crossbows are really good for melee characters, slightly less good for range characters. The reason why is because it fires in a cone in front of you. If you're directly melee of the enemy, it's basically a shotgun blast to the face. But if they're standing really far away from you, the 2 arrows on the sides will usually just fly past the enemy. So here, knowing that, I actually decided to pick up this crossbow of splitting, which most people would actually consider a downgrade because, well, the triple crossbow fires 3 and this only fires 2. Yes, but the reason I decided to take this is because the duplicated arrow tries to stay on the same path as the first arrow. So in a longer range engagement, which the Pyromancer wants to be in, you're getting slightly more consistent damage with the crossbow of splitting rather than the triple crossbow. It's also just more ammo efficient. So if I wanted to drop that second arrow stack now, I'm not really feeling too bad about it. And as you can see, I did actually drop the second arrow stack to pick up the Rod of Blizzard. Which, again, Blizzard is not amazing. I think it sucks personally, but we might as well take it. We really don't need that second arrow stack if we're using a crossbow of splitting, right? The correct choice here is actually to take the kettle hat for the extra armor, since I don't have 4 hearts. Like, because I'm so squishy right now, you really want to armor up as much as possible, but I decided not to take it just because I really want to get like a cool clip using the lightning bolt. If you're trying to be optimal and not lose this run, definitely take the kettle hat there. But if you're me and you just want to, you know, do cool shit and put it on YouTube, yeah, I guess you can stick with the fucking dog shit lightning bolt hood. So yeah, you do see me using the magic map a little more in this run, but to be honest, I've spoken about it before. I don't really want to go into too much detail about it. Magic maps right now don't do enough on their own. Knowing the dungeon layout is usually not enough. You actually want to see points of interest on the map. Because just because I can see the shape of the dungeon, you know, that doesn't tell me where I want to go. And yeah, I just run in, finish the enemy off with my mace because he was 1 HP. And I, you know, at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm done trolling. I see a ranger's cap on the ground there. I'm probably going to come back to that later because, you know, I have a triple crossbow, or sorry, I have a crossbow of splitting. And you can see there, like, I don't have a good setup to be playing melee like that, but the mace on its own can put in the work sometimes and just kind of, you know, fuck enemies against the wall. Don't take that out of context. I just feel comfortable using melee weapons in this game, man. I don't know. I feel like maces just have such a good safety net because they constantly knock enemies away. And that is just really good CC. I think this next encounter gets a little ugly. Not super ugly, like I don't think I take a bunch of HP damage for this, but I try to get fancy with it here. That is what you would do if you had the bonfire spell active. You would drop it on the ground and then kind of just push enemies into it like that, which I try to do, but they're not really following me in like a straight line. They're kind of coming at me in like an angle, so it's kind of hard to get it off properly. You saw I do the Kamehameha blast again. It didn't do enough. So yeah, at this point I'm like, you know what, I really shouldn't be carrying this. And then I think I go back and I pick up that hunter's cap. I can't confirm this, but I think the hunter's cap does actually help you do ranged spells a little bit faster as well. But all we really care is that it's going to buff up the crossbow splitting that I have on me right now. Reaching a crevice. Dude, I have so much fucking money. Like, if that merchant is selling anything worth buying, I'm fucking picking it up. Like, I don't think I've ever been this rich before. It's crazy. 700 gold! Mind you, this is mainly an issue of the stage 1 merchant didn't have anything worth picking up. So, might also talk to the dev about that, because I've seen too many merchants that literally just have magic map, and then like a blue potion, and you're like, what the fuck do I do with this, man? I pick up the battle axe here, and then I decide, you know what, I really don't need slashing damage, so, you know, honestly, just give me the stats. Normally, I would probably consider picking that up if I had, you know, I didn't have a loadout that could deal with zombies. But I'm like, nah, dude, honestly, my fire is enough. Like, ignition and firebolt, that's all you fucking need to get through stage 2. It deals with zombies, which is like a huge demand in this game. Like, you need to have a loadout that can deal with zombies. It deals with armored knights. It deals with a lot of the scary enemies in this game that can spawn, like lesser hellfire demons, hellfire guards, you know, the big bulky dudes that have like the great swords that are on fire. And you can see here, like, I'm trying to get the cool Kamehameha blast, but that enemy is just so aggressive that I'm like, nah, you know what, just fucking top fire it. It's a really cool spell, but it's not doing anything for me. Like, I could kill that guy very easily. You've seen me kill them very easily in this run with just Firebolt and Ignition. And you can see the reason that enemy didn't come towards me is because he actually couldn't see me in the darkness. So, you know, that's something that I don't really see people talking a lot about, is the fact that the Pyromancer's light source is really fucking good for still staying hidden and having it out at the same time. Like in the case of, ooh, is a little bit scary. Lightning bolt comes up, we chuck it at him, and that's what I meant by, like, he's using a metal shield, but for some reason that didn't damage him I feel like he should be taking damage there from the lightning bolt, but that's just me, I guess. Anyway, he's not immune to getting fucking blasted by a flamethrower in the mouth. So yeah, we pick up the Hunter's Cap. I already explained why before, but another reason I think it's important to pick it up here is just because it removes Lightning Bolt off my spell rotation. So if you don't know, I don't know if this is the same on mouse and keyboard, but on a controller, which is what I play on, in order to cycle through your spells and items, you press up and down on the D-pad. And then to get back to the first one, you have to cycle through all your items, right? So the less things that you have, the easier it is to stay on the thing that you want. So I'm like, you know what? Lightning Bolt, it's not going to fucking help me in a boss fight. All I need is Ignition and Firebolt. Let me just stay on Ignition and Firebolt. Remove Lightning Bolt from my spell roster. And then I won't like misclick it on accident when I meant to click something else, right? Something I like to do before I enter any boss room is I like to look at my loadout, make sure that I know everything that's at my disposal. And then yeah, we just walk in. This enemy, sometimes you might not notice this if you've come in here and you're playing a class that doesn't have like Starlight, for example. His ass end can be targeted. His face and his ass end is where you want to hit him. Those are the only spots in him that can take damage. If you attack him in his armored centipede body, you're not going to deal damage and your attacks are just going to deflect off of him. This boss is ideally fought from range because he lunges at you every few rotations of whatever the fuck he's throwing at you, but all you really have to do is just micro dodge, kind of like you saw me do in the Hellfire Priest fight, and then when you see him do the lunge like that, just dodge out of the way, sidestep it. He does get faster as he gets lower on HP, and he does throw a kind of hard to see projectile at you that follows you around. You can see there's those green like explosions. I'm not sure what those are. If you stand in those, you take damage, but for the most part, you can just micro dodge this boss, sidestep him. Again, he gets faster, so you just kind of play the rhythm game at a faster pace, but you pretty much play that fight out the same way the entire way through. So yeah, I didn't need to have a crossbow splitting in there. I could have just used Firebolt and Ignition that entire time and just whacked them in the tail with my mace whenever it got in front of me. Again, this class, if you don't find what you want, it's not a big deal. You can still play with what you have, right? If I was Adventurer and I walked in there and I didn't have a crossbow, I'm not going to have a good time, you know? But if I didn't have a crossbow in this fight and I'm playing the Pyromancer, okay, I just do what I just did, but slower, using Firebolt and charging it. So yeah, we decided to pick up the Hauberk of Light because we might as well. It's not really giving us more stats, but it glows. And I feel like just having slightly better visibility is good in any fight. The next boss room, visibility isn't really an issue, but like maybe it can save you from getting hit from an ad that you didn't see or something. Frozen Needles, my favorite spell to take into this boss fight. And then there it is. We find Frigid Aegis, the last bit of safety net that we needed because we didn't find a heart earlier in the run. So now that I have Frigid Aegis, I literally couldn't care less that I only have 3 HP. Now I know at least if I get hit, mind you, when you get hit in this boss fight, usually it leads to you taking a chain of damage, because you'll get charge and that opens up opportunities for other enemies to hit you. You'll get hit with fire, and then obviously that does damage over time. You get chilled, enemies hit you, you get wind blasted, you get knocked against the wall, and then enemies walk up and hit you. Like, every time that you take damage in this fight, it's usually in a chain. So if the initial hit is not really doing anything to me, then that makes it that the resulting chain is probably not going to kill me. So yeah, we just play it slow. Walk up, tap ignite just to set them on fire. Firebolt them. I'm able to trade firebolt with him there because I have Frigid Aegis active. And that right there is exactly what I mean by you usually get chained into attacks. He wind blasted me, and then the demon was able to hit me with her cleaver. Kind of an annoying fight, but it is what it is. Now, I want to just prove a point and not really use the crossbow that much in this fight, just so that people can see, like, hey, this class, like, he can't just fight this guy with just what he starts off with. But I'm like, you know what? Nah, fuck it. I have, you know, most people in runs, like, they'll usually find a bow or a crossbow or some form of range. Icicles, for example. You don't really need those ranged options to deal damage. You just need to be able to remove his spell shield. And you don't even need a long-range weapon to do that. You can literally just use a pebble. I had a run the other day where I played Adventurer, and I didn't have any ranged options, so I just came in here with a stack of pebbles. And every time that I saw his dumb spell shield, I just threw a pebble at it. And then I was able to run in and, you know, do my melee attacks on him. I try to cast a spell, but my stamina isn't full, so it fizzles. And you can see, like, my icicles are really not doing any damage. They're literally just there to remove his fucking annoying spell shield. So we're just kiting around. And this is why I'm not really upset about only getting stamina in the run. The more stamina that you have, the easier it makes this fight, because you constantly have to run. If you don't have good stamina in this fight, or you're playing Friar with the fat debuff, this fight feels absolutely fucking miserable. So yeah, when you get unlucky and the game doesn't give you stamina, it's okay. It still indirectly translates into survivability. Don't get too bummed out about it. Just play the game. If you're playing Pyromancer, you already have the tools to succeed. And yeah, that's pretty much it.